Good afternoon, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start thanking Karel Janeček's Institute for giving me a sensational opportunity. I have not been to any conference last 6, 7 or 8 years because I was engaged in trying to produce something. So it's actually my first ever reflection after so many years coming back from sub-Saharan Africa and coming back from Iraq and elsewhere. So thanks for the opportunity. Second point I'd like to do is actually to thank Karel Janeček's Age 21 Institute, because it's really Age 21 Institute. I can see some couple of faces of his young team, which are actually of similar age, being 23, 24, working for Karel Janeček and introducing new pro-democracy population of our country. So clapping to Janeček's team. They are marvelous. So I am a practitioner. As I said, I have not been to any international conference since a couple of years or since quite some years. So bear with me with my terminology and with my experience and experiences. Since quite some years, I, coming from Havel's generation, was involved in one particular activity, which is called democratization. If you do something what is called democratization, it basically means that you have a concept of taking democracy from where is it, and you bring it somewhere where it's not. You take it, you lift it up, and you bring it. So you suppose that there is something like democracy because you can take it and you can bring it somewhere. I think that, of course, what you see are the uranium-depleted tanks coming from what was called the Highway of Death, which was bombed in the northern Iraq in 1991, if I'm not mistaken. It's my own private photo. So this is where we start introducing democracy, well before 21st century came up. I recently spent 9 years in Iraq altogether. I've been working for Freedom House in Cairo. I've been working in different Middle Eastern countries, and recently I've gained sub-Saharan experience as a head of European Union delegation, and I was a head of European Union delegation to Iraq as well. This gives me a multiple understanding of what democracy is supposed to be, is not, and what we do not know about it. But my final point, I will bring you an enormous positive story. And the whole conclusion of today, I'll try to be as positive as possible. So when we take the box of democracy and bring it from here to there, we have some benchmarks because we are loved European bureaucrats and politicians. So the first typical thing with which we start is elections. I can only tell you that I have been participating in elections which which were phenomenal because these were elections where we, the whole world, recognized elections, but we did not recognize the winner because we did not like him. It was a 2006 Palestine Hamas. So yes, we can recognize elections and we cannot recognize the winner. There was another part to these elections which were clearly won by Hamas, was, that we all loved Organization for Liberation of Palestine, and we were all supporting this organization, which actually, according to something what we love to call international law, was labeled the only representative of sovereign people. So you prepare election, and you already know who is the only representative. Many years later, I served in Namibia, where we have Southwest African People Organization, SWAPO, which actually, according to the resolution on independence of Namibia, was recognized as the only existing representative of people and peoples of Namibia. So you go to general elections knowing what the result is, and in many African countries, because of the second wave of democratization / liberation of Africa, we basically have the independence parties which are running and winning elections. So for me, and the third experience with elections came from trying to be as balanced as possible, having the multi-ethnic understanding that we have to keep the proportionality of language, religion and ethnicity. It was 2014 Kirkuk. And how we did it, we asked every of the 4 main components of society, we call them ethno-religious components, to settle one most important balloting place. We took off with helicopter before we landed. None of these 4 voting or election stations exist. We had nowhere to land. They were bombed. So I would say very strictly that elections is a part of pro-democracy experience, but we have to be very careful how we recognize the players, actors, how we do voting systems, how we register parties. And we definitely cannot say that elections equal democracy. We all know it, but some examples are really appalling. Not going to recent Zimbabwe and DRC, we all know what we speak about. So this benchmark, I would say, is off the table of democracy. Elections does not mean democracy, at least not to me. Second thing which you try to think is political parties. You are involved in somehow supporting sheikhs, leaders, traditional authorities, kings, emirs, to create something, what is called political representation. So their tribe, their clan, their group of people can get represented. I've been personally in these elections, 2006, in Hebron H2 sector, which was quite a complicated place. And, you know, there was this Carter Institute and EUOM, European Union Observation Mission, and many others. And I'm an Arabist, and I sat down in Best Western Union hotel and listened to people chatting, all these men in the black jackets, and there were flip charts and us with all these beautiful caps and all these things and making predictions for tomorrow. 20 taxi cars came, they sit around, and they just say, you vote, you vote, you vote, you vote, you vote, you vote, you vote. It took them 15 minutes, and I knew what would be the next day voting result in the place. So if we create these type of political representations built on ethno-religious, language, tribal thing, we won't get much farther. There was a lot said about Northern Ireland and Ireland and about other systems. I would bring up Lebanon experience. And if I have one preference in Lebanon, finally there is a new generation political party. We are Lebanese. It will take them decades to get out from the very complex structure of Lebanese elections, but they will get there because they refuse to bring up ethnicity, language, religion to the point. Now, what is when we speak about how people are registered, how they elect, and what are the rights? Before you get anywhere from all these things, you as well need the right to, and the freedom to gather, the freedom to participate. We all want people to participate, to be present, to know what the processes of stabilization, democratization, liberalization are. Once we got these moments, and there are more often than any peaceful settlement, we basically say it's against the law, it's against the rule of law. The rule of law actually is not the rule of law, but it's a rule of the ruler, and we deny outcomes of these meetings. This was a huge, huge anti-Erdogan meeting in Istanbul in the period of time where we still could be sensitive on what's going on democracy in Turkey. This was totally denied by any Western NGOs, by any Western CSOs, by EU and by other players as well. Right to information. This is a fascinating place. This is a Saddam Hussein installment in the northern Iraq, which was a photo which I deliberately took in December 2002. Knowing that this was Saddam's, then it was destroyed by Americans, but the Americans were coming, so maybe they can reuse this device to inform the population. So what kind of information on the digit between 0 and 1 we do offer to populations when we bring them to elections? And we can speak about Congo, about Madagascar, we can speak about Zimbabwe. We have no means and no tools to bring what we call information. You all here complain about IT misuse, about a lot of social rumors and social media. I've been serving, and I was privileged in the country where is no internet and no TV coverage. And still you can see that people can run actually a fantastic democracy, and I will come into this to this point. So information is what is relevant for the personal decision making, 0 to 1, yes or no, and multiple choices. But it's not the management of those who are coming to bomb, who bombed, who will bomb, and who don't bomb. That's not the thing. So to provide the right information, I'm sorry, it's my photo from my own iPhone. It's a little tiny device which can really make an important change, and it's a solar radio. In vast parts of Africa, and we can speak about migration, you have no access to information, and you have no access to population, because Africa is not covered by power. So you have to find devices, and yet there was something very interesting telling us what they want, and it was migration crisis of 2015. What happened in Africa in 2015, they have got Samsung with solar battery. They got WhatsApp and they got FaceTime. And first time ever they connected to the world in masses of millions of people. And they start to move because their choice is not to stay in their little romantic tiny village with their little boats on Zambezi. Their choice definitely is to go to Europe. Their choice is our civilization. Their choice is to be like we are. And one tiny little mobile phone with the solar battery changed all the networking, all the mobility, and all the connectivity. And we have to be aware of impacts of ITs in the places we have no clue that they even exist. Now, speaking about customs and tribal issues, this is one of the governors of one of unknown country, of unknown regions. If you are from the tribe and clan, and if you have your sheikh, if you have your traditional authority, if you have your king, do you believe you will not vote for your king? Do you believe you will not vote for your sheikh? So one little remark, if we again go back to these elections, is how to give people multiple choices. So I would go definitely for as proportional systems as we can offer the new democracies or starting democracies. One vote constituencies are the worst thing we can do. We see it in Kuwait, which relatively is one of the developed democracies. We have to give them more choices, and this is what resonates, what you say, because especially people living in hierarchical structures, they just vote for the leader, that's it. And we have to keep this model not only as a model for the developed Western societies, but especially for starting democracies. Now, yes, the winner takes it all, and the rule of the law is the rule of the ruler. This photography comes already from Namibia, and you can see a strange tribal man coming from a very esteemed Himba people. And there is one more photo when the lady is no more present. It was quite a fascinating meeting because it was a meeting on how to bring voting on local projects to local people, how to first ever organize the Regional Development Council. And here you see the lady who was the governor, and here you see that the lady is no more there. She was killed in between when we have a coffee break, because they disagree with someone who was brought there as a governor, but some alien tribe which they did not like. These are Himba people. They are people who have no access to ITs, no access to any information, no access to any livelihood, but they express their ways the way how some other tribes deprives of the expression and participation do express. Now, not only that we have elections, we have political parties, that we have a registration of political parties, and we believe in rights to information and the things like this. We create parliaments. Wherever we go, we create parliaments. And I've been running parliamentary support program in 2 different countries, Iraq and Namibia. To be very short, when I came to Namibia, I was asked, can European Union finance constituency week? So what do you mean by constituency week? Well, we have heard that if people are elected, Namibia is as old as Czech Republic, or actually was born in '89, we have heard that we have to be able to come to our people. I said, yes. We have never done it. When we are elected, we sit in the capital, we never go back. Never ever. Since 1989, free, fair elections in Namibia, they went back to their constituencies. So we financed the constituency week for esteemed members of parliament to get home after 29 years. And we ended by paying taxis and hotel rooms. That was a constituency week. So when you try to talk to parliaments that they have to reflect something else than their tribal, their power aspirations, their voice of blood, you really have to try to make a connection between what is there and what is representative democracy and what is participatory democracy. And this is the lesson learned which I would like to bring back to our environment, and this is participation. There is a famous saying, there is no democracy without representation, or taxation, and I would say without participation. If these people are left alone, living with no way to understand that this huge building in the capital city, that these famous posters and political parties created by whom else, and this one day in 4 years going and clicking the machine or doing whatever, that this is their life, that they can live their life, we will not stabilize and change the world at all. They have zero understanding. It's their matter, it's their thing, and it's their issue. So these lessons learned, and coming to the second part of what I would like to share shortly with you is, I would not say that democracy as such is failing. But what I have seen, and we can criticize it on the case of Iraq or Lebanon or again and again, Syria and Bosnia and wherever we go, Venezuela, I think institutions and forms of democracy are failing. Elections, parliaments, participation, rule of law. So let's try to rethink the lessons we see from these parts of the world which are in constant turmoil. How actually we can think why they fail, and is there any message to us not to fail? I'm sure there is. We in the end managed stabilization, and we have fantastic progress speaking from India to elsewhere, and you know about it. So I would like now to actually go from Himba people to this thing and introduce to you a topic which is so dear to my heart, and this is abbreviated CBRNRM, Community-Based Natural Resources Management. Community-Based Natural Resources Management. Thanks to Americans and WWF, there is a new model which is introduced in many sub-Saharan countries, but not only, it's actually now being exported to as far as Mongolia, Iran, and Turks are studying the same thing. You create a law on a special type of non-governmental body, be it NGO or CSO. You allow a couple of villages to get together to write their constitution, to have an annual General Assembly, to decide on what they are going to do with their field, with their forest, with their river, with their elephants, with their rhinos, and what they are going to do with their profit. This movement started in a country so far from here called Namibia. Currently in Namibia there is 86 registered community conservancies having 230,000 people out of 2 million on the area of 150,000 square kilometers, and basically gaining since 1995 till today €1.5 billion income to local population. And by deciding to build a touristic joint venture, by deciding to protecting their elephants and rhinos, by deciding where is the forest they are going to cut and where is the forest they are not going to cut, by deciding how to use money, be it for pensions, elderly people, for their schools, or for their healthcare center, they can do it locally. Once again, I'm speaking only in Namibia about 86 community conservancies with full books, full general assemblies, and basically having their constitutions. This is now going on in Zambia, it's going on in Zimbabwe, we are trying to introduce it in Angola, it goes on in Tanzania and in many other countries of the very poor, least developed countries. And you would not imagine one again generated netto income $1.5 billion since 1995 for local pockets, for people who have never ever seen governmental ambulance car, for people who have never been able to send their kids to any school, but the school they established by decision. Most of their money comes from tourism, but not only, there would not be tourism if they would not do one thing. And this is where emotion comes if you go local. Because then you love your rhino, because you know it brings you income, but it's your rhino. We established a full fishing ban on Zambezi River for almost half a year, and I attended one of these general assemblies and I saw that traditional authorities will use all voodoo means to kill me. And they said, no, 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 this is our fish. It's protecting against all these foreign tourists. I could not believe it took us 5 years. We work with Bushmen, with San people, and in 5 years having community conservancy meetings, we established such a gardens in the most remote parts, which you won't find. It's somewhere on the border between Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Namibia, in a place called Caprivi. You can make people caring, you can make people co-deciding, you can make people having transparent finances, and you can make people having earnings. And as I say, one thing which I really love about these things are, you can bring women, village women, to sit in these meetings and basically to try to decide. This is a typical community conservancy, 1 year annual General Assembly. So what we bring in there is emotions. What we bring there is co-decision. What we bring there is co-financing, co-sharing, co-responsibility. And what is the message for us with the communities? What they are based on: 66% of African population lives on what they have beneath their feet. Fish, water, forest, land, animal. This is their livelihood, and they decide on it, and they create on their own environment, and they protect perfectly their own environment. The population of elephants, rhinos has tripled in Namibia only since the system was involved. And they are best anti-poachers because they know their area and they love it. And so when thinking about the beetle, bark beetle in Czech forests, thinking about the depletion of soil in our territory, and now I'm becoming Czech citizen, but elsewhere, what matters now is this decision: are we protecting life or lifestyle? This is a decision we do 20 times a day, the most democratic decision we do now on our planet. If we take it from there, and if we put understanding and care for what we really live on, and engage people and make them community responsible, I think that's some lesson learned from the least developed countries to bring up a bit more understanding of democracy. Thank you. Sorry to say so, I forgot about one thing. You can read all these annual reports, which are perfect and perfectly done according actually American international accounting standards. And that's what would happen if we don't care. Thank you.
Many thanks to Dr. Jana Hybášková for that fascinating talk. We actually have a little bit of time for a couple of questions. Yeah. The lady over here.
I thought that was too long.
The green button.
Děkuji, thank you. Hello, thank you for your amazing work. I am Veronika Vildová. I am project manager for Avast Software, and I was wondering, you said that when people discovered smartphones, that they got WhatsApp and FaceTime. If there is something what IT leaders, world IT leaders, can do to help here in those countries. In any way, if you see any possibility how global leaders can help, what they can change, if they can communicate differently, if they can do anything.
Well, thank you for the question. I will start with anecdote. To help one of the community conservancies on Zambezi River, because we were trying to stop depletion of bream fish done by Chinese, and we established fish guards. Usually you have this official part of the meeting, and then you have the unofficial one. And in the unofficial one, one of the fish guards came and, you know, lady, are you from Europe? I was 2 hours trying to introduce myself as European, okay. You know, one day I will go there. Yeah, okay, we were on Zambezi, yeah? You know, it's not that complicated. You cross Africa, and then there is only one lake, and you know what? There are no crocodiles. I was pretty serious about understanding the situation, the information he has got. So one thing is to, first of all, be aware of the fact that these people have connectivity now. And it's a very recent peaking thing. It's really something what happened recently. And they will not stop going. If you see the size of Sahara, they will go. They opt by decision to go for our civilization, not for their civilization. So definitely, first of all, we can improve their lives where they stay. Having years to think how can we improve their lives, and IT technologies. The biggest problem of Africa currently is this thing we call it urbanization. I would say it's a migration of population from the places they can no more survive to places where they believe instinctively they can survive. In no step until they reach Europe, they have anything what in our terms it would be called home. I'm a strong advocate of using any cheapest technologies for introducing social housing. The moment you got the place you call home, it's much more difficult for you to move. And these opportunities they don't have. I don't know how much we can use ITs to produce these cheap homes. I'm sure we can. So for me, this is the first one. We cannot compete on social media with what their cousins are sending. That's no way. But we can offer some other stories. I mean, we tried now. There is EU blogging system. You can actually find even some EU bloggers who were financed and sent to Namibia to inform about our projects. It does not work. You won't find them in Google. You have to spend 2.5 hours to find them on YouTube. So yeah, where these searching engines can help is to bring stories which are as well positive, relevant. You can pay bloggers, but if they are not the bloggers, you won't get there. I can show you these videos later.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The gentleman in the middle.
I think that you had a very interesting point that there are, of course, many, for example, of democracy and stuff, but that we might be able to learn from from us, because I mean, people are very similar. So, and if you have some specific cases, it would be interesting. What do you think is the danger here that you could see there happening, realizing?
Yeah, again, stressing very strongly. I think that our deprivation from everything, including participation and hope and belief and pursuit of happiness, is that we are too far from decision-making. It's centralization or globalization or whatever we call it. More locally you act, better you feel, more you know, more safe you are, more you feel the impact on your things. So strangely, even though I've been working with a very complex communities, be it Shiite or Sunni communities, who can then emanate a lot of danger for their neighbors, and it's not always that community is a positive thing. In Iraq, it can be difficult. But in normal environment, communities allowing for, and this is so important about this community-based natural resource management, is they really have, all these people I show you here, on every aspect of what they do, they vote. In afternoon, they vote 20 times. And they vote and vote. They bring these usually plastic chairs somewhere. They sit and they vote and vote and vote and vote. Every decision they do, they vote. Should we protect fish? Should the December be months of protection? Should we have 200 cattle or 100 cattle, 150 cattle and 2 elephants more? Should we, and they have joint ventures, they have tourism lodges. How much of money coming from the lodge should go to traditional authority, and how much should go to school? This can last weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, but they get a decision, and they get decision by voting, 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 and voting. So local communities, and this is what you do through budget. I would say it's not only on budget, but you know, make. Par example of European democracy in this is environment impact assessment. How it comes that in sub-Saharan African countries, environmental impact assessment, even in South Africa and you know, even in Zimbabwe, you have EAS. And these people go and participate in EAS. If you have EA in Prague 6 magistrate, you won't get much. So having people bringing them as close as decision. So from my point, knowing a little bit of what you do, some issues like really giving this budget voting to population of Prague 6 or Prague 7 or whatever, there is 57 units in what we call the capital city, or getting people more used to at least, you know, to understand what is the mood of other population, any kind of local referendum. So I would put the referendum on Konev's statue. I mean it seriously, but not a referendum as referendum, but as an exemplary public research. These things would help us to orient ourselves better. Okay, we cannot bring most probably plastic chairs to what is called now Vítězné náměstí and sit and vote there whole afternoon, but we have the technology to simulate the situation. Thank you.